Welcome everybody to our August DataHub Town Hall. If we've not met, I'm Maggie. I'm the product or the DataHub Community Product Manager. Always happy to see your lovely squares on the screen, and we have plenty to share with you today. So let's dig on in. From an agenda standpoint, like I said, we have a ton to get through. We actually have two case studies or community-led sections today, which I'm super excited about. So we'll hear from the Etsy team, we'll hear from Atul from Genworth with some kind of custom work that he's been doing. And then we just have some UI improvements galore to walk you through and some pretty exciting stuff. Before we dig into that, let's take a look at kind of DataHub community, what the stats look like over the last month or so. If you were at Town Hall last month, we talked about this a little bit. We are seeing a little bit of a slowdown from the summer months in terms of activity, but we still are seeing, I think last month was like 270 new members. This month we had an additional 260 new community members. So we're well over 4,000, which is just kind of crazy. Still a ton of weekly active users. So on average, we're seeing about 870 to about 900 weekly active users. So, you know, even though it is a little bit lower than last month, still super vibrant. There's still a ton going on. Just shy of 9,000 messages posted and 624 emoji reactions. So like I said, a little bit of a slowdown from the summer, but it's exciting to see that we're still welcoming in new folks. One other thing that we look at together is our community support volume, and just to get a sense of where they're, you know, kind of like the trajectory or the throughput of our contributions, and then also community support within our Slack. I added in one additional metric in here. So we normally were looking at the number of issues opened and the number of pull requests opened. I actually pulled in the merge requests as well, or merge pull requests, so we could kind of understand that ratio of throughput. So we, in this last period, so this last 4-week period, we did see 5 more PRs on average per week be opened. And we're trending right around the same kind of open and merge rate from the PR standpoint. From a support side within Slack, we did see an increase. So this is interesting, even though overall we saw kind of a lower number or like a lower volume of engagement, we actually saw an increase in the number of support questions that we were getting. So primarily this is happening in our ingestion and troubleshoot channels. Once again, if you're able to jump in and help answer questions for one another, it's a massive help for the core team. It means that we are able to spend more time building out net new features or you know, moving community contributions through our PR review. So we really appreciate when folks are able to jump in there. Quick roadmap update. We are going to actually see some previews of this today, but we have some improvements to our DataHub SDK coming in. Today, we're going to be sharing the patch update functionality that we're working on. And then Gabe is going to walk us through a preview of our advanced search functionality. In terms of our getting started tutorial, we're making some improvements to our doc site. I'm going to give you a quick demo of that in a second. So all in all, we're making some really great progress on our Q3 roadmap. And I'm optimistic that we will be able to, at the bare minimum, get started on everything that we had scoped out for this quarter within the next month or so. Speaking of docs overhaul, let me give you just a super quick overview here. This isn't merged yet. I'm hoping this will be merged by the end of this week. So our landing page has a new look. Our hope here is that when people land, they can immediately jump in and get started and start to understand kind of the lay of the land of our doc site. So if you click on Get Started, this takes you to our new documentation homepage. We have split this into a handful of different modules for folks to kind of step through and getting familiar with the project. We also have some quick links out to deployment guides. So depending on, you know, what your deployment setup is, ingestion guide, these are our most kind of common points of ingestion. And then feature guides down here. There's also a new search bar up here. So if you wanted to look for Snowflake, it would show you, it would basically search the entirety of our doc site there. So just a quick link into here, you'll notice a new sidebar. So it's a much more kind of sequential in the organization. And there was one other thing that I wanted to call out, and I can't quite remember. But really, the goal is that folks will just have a much more intuitive way to navigate through our doc site. And then we're also going to be pushing out additional resources in the coming weeks as well. So plenty to come there. As soon as that's live, I'd love feedback. Really, I just want to make sure that these are resources that are helpful and useful for you. All right, quick rundown of our community shout outs. We had, I think it was just shy of 20 people helping out in the community this month. We really, like I said, we really appreciate the support. So massive thanks to all of these folks that we have listed here. XL, of course, is always our shining contributor. So big shout out to XL for jumping in on any and all questions. We really appreciate it. But like I said, massive thanks to all these folks. We really genuinely appreciate the support that you're giving. In terms of other types of community contributions, we talk about this a lot. Code is not the only way to contribute to the community. Supporting each other is not the only way to contribute. You can also write about DataHub, share your experience, and just kind of get the word out. So this is a fantastic blog by Frederick from the Wolt team. So in this blog, Frederick breaks down really concretely how they choose different open source projects, why they choose them, what they look for. And then there's also kind of a deeper kind of like success story with DataHub. So if you're new to DataHub, if you're new to open source, highly recommend checking this out. And speaking of blogs, if you are interested in improving your writing skills, or if you want to contribute in these kind of like non-code ways, we recently rolled out our community contribution program for our blog. If you are interested in doing that, we will help you along the way. We know that your time is valuable, so we'll also give you a little bit of compensation there for your efforts. And yeah, we want to help you be successful there. So feel free to either reach out to me directly if you have questions, or you can just jump into the Contribute DataHub blog channel. One last thing, I was in Tel Aviv earlier this summer to speak at Haya Data. These videos are now finally live. So if you want to check that out, we talk about kind of core principles of what a data practitioner should do with metadata. And that's it from a community side. Shirshanka, I will hand it over to you.
Cool. I have been told to be less verbose today, so I'll go very quick. We had, as usual, a lot of PRs getting merged. As Maggie said, our PR consumers are keeping up with the input volume. And so we had quite a bit of activity, up from the summer lull of 150, getting closer to that 200 range that we were seeing prior to the summer. So we're getting to about 180 PRs this last month or so. Lots of contributors, and as usual, some new contributors as well. So really enjoying to see new contributions coming in, not just on the main open source DataHub project, but also on the Helm chart side of things. We really appreciate all your contributions, not only in the core parts of the stack, but also in the deployment side of the house. So keep them coming, and looking forward to more. In terms of product updates, you'll see quite a bit of that in the rest of the demos today. But just a quick recap, we talked about John demoed bulk edits last town hall. This is now live in the current release. We also have improved search cards, displaying usage and freshness information. So it kind of gives you a lot more information right there when your search results come back to you. We're also rolling out a lot more of the forms for different sources. So Snowflake, BigQuery, Looker, and Tableau already there, and a lot more are coming. And then on the ingestion side, or the integration side, we had quite a few improvements that are in the latest UI as well as CLI release. You'll see Chris demo ingestion run summaries. I'm really excited about that. So we'll see how that looks. We also have improvements to transformer land. We have like a dataset domain transformer. So independent of whichever source you've got going, you can always add domains to datasets during ingestion. The Snowflake beta connector is now released, and so you can start using it. We're already dogfooding it with ourselves, as well as with a lot of other folks, and it's showing a lot of improvements compared to the previous Snowflake connector. we expect to make it be the default connector in the next release. It also supports test connection, so you can check whether you've processed proper access levels and things like that. Something that we just released last week was improvements to the file source. There wasn't enough space to actually put that in there. So the file source, which is supposed to ingest metadata events, now supports really large files. So you can have like a gig or 2 gigs of metadata events that you can ingest using the file source, and it won't croak. It also supports folders now, so you can give it a folder of a lot of files that have metadata events in them, and it will just handle it just fine. In terms of the dev experience, we have also rolled out a Java-based file emitter. So that's basically for the Java SDK to be able to produce files that are now compatible with also the Python source. And last but not the least, there's now a failed events log that you can configure when running your ingestion pipelines. So oftentimes you've run a large ingestion and 1 or 2 events maybe failed to get written to DataHub. And now we support the ability for you to actually log those events so that you can look at them, figure out what went wrong, try to replay them, etc. So that's all I had for product updates. As a high level, quick UI sneak peek of stuff we launched. We have now, you'll notice a last synchronized flag on each entity. And that basically shows you when we heard about this entity last, we meaning DataHub. So this kind of gives you a sense of liveliness of the data set with respect to DataHub knowing about it. So this works across a lot of different aspects, schemas, time series aspects, and everything. So it gives you kind of at a high level, when is the last time we heard anything about this data set? The next thing that we've rolled out recently is a simplified homepage preference. So we heard this feedback a lot that DataHub is amazing as a technical catalog. It shows you everything about everything. But at the same time, there are personas like business users who maybe don't care as much whether an Airflow task shows up in their search result or an ML model shows up in their search result. And so we are giving people the ability to set a simplified homepage preference for themselves. And once they do that, it actually is going to remove some of these more technical artifacts from your browsing experience. So hopefully this helps you kind of get both technical and business users feel like they have a home here. Secondly, we also heard some feedback from the community around kind of the organization of the sections on the homepage. And so we're moving up domains up to give more, kind of to let them shine more, right? So if you're putting a domain-oriented strategy in place, you want people to start with the domains. And that's why the domains are actually getting lifted up on in preference to kind of the platform section. So as usual, we like to iterate with the community. We hear feedback and we make changes, keep the feedback coming, and we'll continue making improvements to the user experience. That's all I had. And now we have a bunch of amazing community case studies. So I'm excited.
Yeah, that sounds great. So we're going to start things off with hearing from Vishal from the Etsy team.
Cool. Can everyone see my screen?
Yep, you're all good to go.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. My name is Vishal Shah. I'm a data engineer at Etsy, and I'm super excited to present at today's town hall about our DataHub adoption journey. So to kick things off, I'll give a quick intro on Etsy, then I'll jump into our journey timeline and then highlight some interesting implementation and metadata learnings. Last, I'll end with a quick bit about what we look forward to seeing in DataHub. So for anyone who is not familiar, Etsy is a two-sided global marketplace for handcrafted and antique pieces. Founded in 2005, Etsy is an e-commerce platform based out of Brooklyn, New York, with offices and admin around the world. So to give an idea of the size and complexity of our data, Etsy has over 7 million active sellers, 93 million active buyers, and over 100 million unique listings. Our production data is stored across hundreds of shards in MySQL. We have a data warehouse in BigQuery and other data sources as well. So our platform has seen tremendous growth over the years, and with that, so has our data. And with the data, so has our metadata, which takes me to our journey to a new data catalog. So our journey goes back 9 years to the year 2013, when we built our first in-house data catalog called Schemer. Over the years, Schemer became an integral tool for engineers, analysts, and more. Users could search for tables from MySQL and our data warehouse at the time, which was Vertica. They could add table and column descriptions, and there were links to the source code as well for those tables. Alongside, in 2020, we built a proof of concept lineage tool called the Data Lineage Tool to start understanding the complex relationships across our vast data landscape. Both tools had been on maintenance mode for some time, and we knew it was time to reinvest in data discovery. So cut to April of 2021. Data engineering teams at Etsy wrapped up our data warehouse migration from Vertica to BigQuery and formed our new data discovery team. We knew there was a need for a better data discovery experience, but we wanted to understand the problem space better before we jumped into a solution. So our team of 6 engineers, 1 product manager, 1 engineering manager, conducted a month of user interviews where we spoke to 30 individuals from engineering, product management, analytics, and more about their experience using our existing catalog and lineage tool and where they found pain points around discovering data. So we learned that the main issues were around around discovery and trust. It was hard to find the right data sets, and it was unclear which data sets were reliable, where they came from, and how they were being used. Much of this information came from tribal knowledge, which at this stage of growth was no longer sustainable for us. I want to call out that while this wasn't complex on the engineering front, there really wasn't much engineering at all that entire month. These interviews helped our team learn about the problem space better and become invested in our team's mission. So the next step was to find a solution. So we split up into squads to investigate all of our options, and there were quite a number. What if we extended Schemer? What if we built a new in-house tool? What if we paid for a fully managed solution that we could get off the ground faster? Or what if we used an open source solution? So we dove into 30 tools over the course of a month and POC'd a couple of them. Our proof of concept of DataHub involved setting up a local instance, adding a custom source, and adding a custom aspect to the metadata model. While it was a bit complex, we found success in DataHub for its flexibility in metadata modeling, integrations with many of our existing data sources at Etsy, and an active and growing community. So after months of research, we were finally ready to move forward with DataHub. So now for the fun engineering part. Along with DataHub, there are many technologies that our team did not have much experience with, but we did have the advantage of other teams at Etsy owning instances of GKE and Kafka and having expertise in BuildKite to guide us along the way. We also set up a Cloud SQL database and used managed Elasticsearch in our infrastructure setup. So we started small and iterated along the way for ingestion. We prioritized BigQuery and MySQL ingestion to match parity with Schemer, and then also built an MVP for data lineage that connected from MySQL to BigQuery to Looker, a widely used data pipeline at Etsy and also displayed in our in-house lineage tool. So after months of implementation work, by April of this year, we were ready to launch DataHub at Etsy. So till date, we have over 600 total users and about 45% are active each month. We've ingested 11,000 data sets across 5 data platforms, and the number increases each day. I want to call out that since we already had a data catalog in production, we had to be extremely thoughtful in our transition to DataHub to make sure that we had addressed any parity issues before deprecating Schemer. I can say that we were able to smoothly migrate onto DataHub and turned off Schemer last month with minimal disturbance. We're also well on our way to turning off our in-house lineage tool to consolidate all of our data discovery efforts into DataHub. So it wouldn't be quite a journey if there weren't any bumps along the way. So I want to take the next couple of slides to highlight some of our learnings as they pertain to implementation and governance. So this question came up a few times. Why doesn't this work as expected? With no fault to DataHub or our data ecosystem, but a natural process of integrating 2 systems together. The cool part about using an open source solution was that we weren't left in the dark with having to figure out every solution by ourselves or having to fully rely on another team to fix all the issues for us. We were able to fit DataHub into our ecosystem and made a couple upstream contributions along the way. Maybe the one with the most impact for us was around the BigQuery ingestion. We have projects at Etsy used only for storage and other projects used for running queries and jobs. This didn't immediately work with the BigQuery ingestion because at that time, it only took in a single project ID. We ran into all sorts of problems when trying to query lineage information or profile from projects where we did not have the permissions to run queries. But with help from the DataHub team, we were able to contribute back and provide an additional field in the recipe for a lineage client project ID. Similarly for Airflow, the current version that we use at Etsy is behind the required version for the lineage backend. We were able to extend the DataHub lineage functionality with a small change to the open source code that made Airflow lineage compatible with our Airflow instance. However, I should add that not all changes were as seamless. For ingestions such as lookml and some custom sources that read from GitHub repositories, we were surprised that we had to clone these repos into a custom image. And lastly, for MySQL ingestion, a hurdle that we came across was around how to profile sharded databases. Profiling off of one host would not capture the full statistics for a table that's sharded over hundreds of hosts. And also profiling against our production database was turning out to be a bit complex and expensive and a concern for our production systems. So for now, this one's still on hold and something that we discussed on our team. Outside of implementation, we learned about how data discovery and data lineage are both highly dependent on data governance. How do we display all of this helpful metadata information in DataHub if we don't know where to find it? So our approach is to start with ownership, to make adding an owner to a data set extremely easy and accessible directly in the creation code for that data set, and then adding more governance rules from there. Even for lineage, for Airflow, a situation falls around, do we ask users to add inlets and outlets manually to their DAGs? What if they change their data job and don't update the outlet? What if there's a typo? Or should we find a way to add them programmatically into the operators themselves? We believe that data governance will play a crucial role in the success of DataHub at Etsy. So if you have any success stories regarding governance, ownership, or Airflow lineage, please reach out to us. We'd definitely love to hear about them. And lastly, I want to touch on a few wishlist items that we'd be thrilled to see in DataHub. So firstly, column level lineage, especially for BigQuery, would be a huge win. Subscriptions and favorites would be another. That would allow for more team collaboration and standardization. So if I were to join a new team, I would already know what are my team's most important data sets and could get notified for any changes, even if I were not the data owner. Lastly, a list of dataset recommendations based on my most viewed or favorite datasets would lead to a boost in data discovery for our end users. So that's all I have for today. I want to give a huge thank you to the DataHub team for all of the help and support along our journey with our many questions. Also, a special shout out to the data discovery team at Etsy for their support with this presentation. Can't wait to see all the cool stuff that we work on with the DataHub. And if you have any questions or success stories that you would want to share with us, you can feel free to reach out to me on the DataHub Slack. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Vishal. That was pretty amazing. And it looks like everyone agrees with your wish list. So we have we have some good signal there. Thanks so much for sharing it. All right, so we are going to move on to a second community-led section here. Mr. Atul, would you like to, oh, you're already sharing. I will hand it over to you.
Thanks, Maggie. So I'm Atul Saurav from Genworth Financial. Hopefully this should start sharing, yeah. And I'm here with a quick demo of a small tool that we built at Genworth. So I kind of like to call this desktop search tool as CaKEwalking or CaKEwalk into DataHub, and you'll quickly see why. So the use case for this particular tool is that oftentimes people chat in the online world or come across documentations and there are unfamiliar terms. And it's like, what does this thing mean? And I am my colleague and say, hey, what does this thing mean? And they may have some definition of it, but is that the approved and official definition, or is that like heard from someone? And being on the data governance team, this was a prime challenge for us. It was like, no, we need to drive that common meaning across the enterprise. And how do we make that easy when people keep coming across these, and online, it becomes difficult to actually even have all those collaborative discussions. And that's where the solution came in, which we thought like, okay, wouldn't it be cool if very easily people were able to search into the glossaries that we have stored in DataHub, which are kind of vetted and discussed with different teams, and they're the official version of those meanings. And that's when CaKE was born. So CaKE stands for Content and Knowledge Explorer. You can think of it as a DataHub agent or DataHub desktop. Name, whatever it is, cheesy, not cheesy, I'm not married to it, but it's a name, right? But with that, let's go into a quick demo, and then we can talk about the future possibilities of it, right? So maybe, who knows, I'm in a meeting or a chat or reading a documentation somewhere, I come across this term like DGPO. What does that mean? So the way this works is I highlight this, I do a copy, which is Command C, and then hit another top hotkey, and whatever are the approved definitions of this particular thing, which are present in DataHub, get pulled out into this UI. So without even having to go navigate into a browser and go and look for stuff, I can find some content on this, right? I can click on, who knows, this, copy, and that. And I have this thing. If someone wanted to learn more about this, there's always a learn more option. So you could click that. And that takes you right into DataHub, where you have more information about that. And the cool part of this is, for someone who wants to learn more, as we know, DataHub provides options like related entities. So at this point, there's nothing kind of linked here, but whatever entities are tied to it or other related terms and such, everything's there right at the fingertips. So things like all these searches, I did not hit copy, that, right? So that easy to quickly get some information, quickly know what is the context behind it and things like that. There is also a use case where, what if something does not exist, right? Hopefully it doesn't exist. And then what do you do? So in that case, the workflow that we have in place currently is, it says not found, you click on this, and it opens up an email where the entire template is pre-populated for you, that you are requesting a definition, you don't know what this means, you send the email, get sent out to the governance team, which is us, and then we find out who are the right people to have those conversations with to establish an approved meaning of that term. So that is pretty much on the demo. Going on to the future possibilities, where is my slide? There, of this, right? So where can we go with this? And to start with, this is built on Electron framework. Most of you would be aware it is a framework for building cross-platform app using JavaScript, HTML. So it's like you write the code once, you can deploy it across, who knows, Mac, Windows, Linux. And just by maintaining that one code base, you can deploy across wherever or whichever platform your users may be. So that was pretty cool. And that's why we picked Electron for building this. The current demo, as you saw, just had the glossaries in it, but we are not limited to glossary. If we perform a search in DataHub, it pulls all kinds of things, where it pulls in data sets, it pulls in, who knows, process flows and all of that. So it's like a search. When someone performs a search, this can be extended to maybe have tabs on this UI. So rather than just approve glossaries, I could have a glossary tab, I could have maybe data set tab and so on. And based on whatever is the preference of that person, they could actually directly just go to a tab and see that kind of an entity search result. And then if they wanted to dig in further, go into DataHub and learn more about that particular kind of entity. And the third aspect of this is, oops, sorry, went too fast. So this could even become an alternate UI for accessing DataHub. So it is actually possible to launch entire DataHub inside that. We could make the window larger, but the power of just coming to or just highlighting a particular thing and hitting a hotkey to get launched into the meaning of it or related entities from it, that's pretty powerful, I think. And that's why we built it. I hope you all like it. And that pretty much concludes my demo for today. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Atul. And I'm not sure that it's happened yet, but I know that we had talked about having you contribute that back to the Meta World repo. So it won't be a part of the main DataHub repo, but I think you are planning on making that available to folks, right?
Yes, that's very much on the plan. I am finishing up with some documentation around this and hopefully be able to contribute it by end of this week.
That's awesome. I'm really, really excited about it. Also, data cake. I mean, come on, that's like, that's a new buzzword, right? It's amazing. That's like top-notch branding.
I hope it's delicious.
Yeah, right. Let them eat data cake. All right. We are going to move on over to Gabe to hear about some recent improvements to our Looker integration.
All right. Let me share my screen here. Yeah, thanks Atul for that presentation. It's super cool to see what you built. I'm looking forward to that contribution. And I really like your sweatshirt. All right, let me get started. So I'm going to talk about some improvements that we've made to the integration between DataHub and Looker today. So the main thrust of this improvement is around indexing looks and dashboards from Looker. So the main feedback that we keep getting from the community is that when people are going and searching for things like looks and dashboards, they really want to discover these visualizations based on what they contain inside of them. So things like what metrics do they visualize? What are different dimensions that you're slicing the data by? But historically, we've only indexed other types of metadata around these. So things like title and description, but not actually the content that's being visualized. And we keep hearing that this presents a challenge for discovery. And so sometimes you might feel like this hamster in a maze trying to find the content instead of it just being presented to you. So what we did is we indexed the metrics and dimensions that power these looks and dashboards for the purposes of search and discovery. So we added these indexes, and now when you search for something like a metric or a dimension, looks and dashboards that contain those are going to be surfaced immediately. So instead of having to go through that maze, you'll be like this other hamster here and find your snack immediately. And as a side note, Looker has this concept of labels for fields, and this is associated with fields that are chart and dashboard specific, but also fields that are part of Looker views or Looker explorers. And historically, we haven't been bringing those into DataHub. We did make an extension to the metadata model of schema fields so that we can include the label property. And that's now going to be brought in for both Looker charts and dashboards for indexing purposes and search and discovery. But it will also be brought in for Looker views and Looker explorers, the dataset entities, so that you can discover those entities based on label as well. It's not being shown right now, but soon, just like this hamster, it will break through and appear on the UI down the line. All right, and it would not be a DataHub town hall session without a live demo. So let me show you what it looks like in practice. So for example, the first thing I'll search for is a dimension breed that we use in Looker. So searching by breed, what you'll see is I'll come up with results that we might have seen before, where we see dashboards that contain breed in the title, or a chart that contains breed in the title. But as you go down pages, what you'll see is here are charts and dashboards that do not have breed in the title, but use breed as a dimension. And these are results that we would not have been able to surface previously. Now, if we go into one of these Looker charts, you can see that although it doesn't have breed in the metadata that we previously indexed, once we load up and look at what metrics and dimensions are in use, you can see that breed was in use. So you're going to be able to recall many more data sets than you could previously. One other use case that I wanted to call out was not just searching metrics and dimensions that came from Looker explorers, but also calculations that were done on the chart specifically. So say, for example, I wanted to search for a metric. I wanted to see who is displaying this concept of average age in years. So searching by average age in years, I'm getting only charts and dashboards that use this particular label. And then going in, you can see that this label is not necessarily a dimension that's coming from the underlying Explorer, but actually this was a custom field built as a calculation specifically for this chart. So we're also able to extract and index those. So hopefully these changes make it a lot easier for you folks to discover the charts and dashboards that are relevant to you. In terms of what's coming down the line, we want to show these labels that we're now extracting on the schema tab for views and explorers. We also want to not just index the inputs on looks and dashboards, but also give you a way to access them so that we'll have a tab where you can see what metrics and dimensions a given Looker dashboard includes. And then finally, as part of this, we're also integrating column level lineage. So we're able to pull in column level lineage as metadata for charts and dashboards. And once we do the column level lineage push that we want to do across the whole app, you'll be able to see this column level lineage in the lineage UI. So that wraps it up for my presentation. Hopefully you folks find this useful, and we really look forward to hearing your feedback on this. And this will all be included in the next release that's coming up.
Thanks so much, Gabe. All right, let's keep chugging along. Professor Collins, you are up.
All righty, thanks, Maggie. Okay, let me share my screen. All right, you guys see that all right? Cool. All right, so hey everyone. Today I'm going to be talking to you and demoing some of the new features we're rolling out around UI-based managed ingestion. So yeah, let's just get into it. Until recently, ingesting your data into DataHub through the UI has seriously been lacking in functionality compared to CLI-based ingestion. Many of you that work in ingestion probably know that. So for example, ingesting through the UI had no real summary for ingestion runs, didn't have live logging to see what was happening. You just kind of set it off and we're kind of in the dark for a while. You couldn't roll back ingestion runs, and we only showed ingestion sources they actually defined through the UI, which isn't the only limit to ingestion in DataHub. As all of you know, ingestion is one of, if not the most important feature in DataHub. So we've really been making it a priority recently to make that experience in-app as nice as possible for all of you. So today, I'm going to show you several new features that should hopefully make all of your ingestion lives easier. All right, so in order to show these features, I'm just going to hop straight into a demo and show you all in real time. Okay, so let me minimize this. Pull up. All right. So if I go over to our ingestion tab and check out these different sources, you guys are going to get a look at what's coming. One of the first things you might notice is that we're now showing you all of your ingestion sources on this page and not just the ones that you create through the UI. So you can see here is a source that is CLI based. Here you can see all of its runs. You can see the status of its runs, when it ran, all that sort of good stuff. Now this ingestion page is a one-stop shop for all of your ingestion sources. And that'll make managing ingestion in DataHub much easier as it's all in a central place instead of fragmented into different places, making it hard to understand where your data is actually coming from. So a prime example of how this can be useful is ingesting data from Looker. Right now, we currently do not support LookML ingestion through the UI. However, the classic Looker source is supported in the UI. In order to get the most full picture of your data, you do need to be able to ingest from both sources. However, now you can actually see both sources in the UI. You can see your CLI-based LookML source and all of its details right next to your UI-based source. However, I'll note that right now, CLI-based sources are restricted in some functionality through the UI. So you can't run them directly through here, and you also can't edit them, which makes sense because we auto-generate them as you run through the CLI. Next, we are not only showing all ingestion sources with information regarding the runs and the status of runs, we are now introducing a brand new run summary feature. So if I go look at our Snowflake ingestion source and click here, or if I look at one of the runs and click details, we get this new ingestion run details summary. So once it's complete, you can now see all of the different assets that were ingested. You can see the status of it. And not only do you get a breakdown of all of the assets based on the asset type and the total number, you can actually right here from the summary view and peruse through all the different data that you've ingested. You can search for different things that were ingested in this run, all that sort of good stuff. It's just going to make it much easier for you to understand what's actually going on in this ingestion run. And then finally, you also have the logs section where you can click and see all of the logs from your ingestion run, and you can also download them for offline usage as well. All right, but however, I did mention that once the ingestion run is complete, you can see all this stuff, but this isn't only useful when it's complete. Another new feature that we're introducing is the ability to view live logs streaming in as the ingestion run is underway. So let me run this Snowflake source. We'll execute it. And then once it starts running, we're going to click it up, show more. And now let's sit and wait. And there we go. We're starting to see logs come in, stream live in as the ingestion is running. So now you can actually check it out, see what's going on, what's getting written into DataHub, see if there's any errors or warnings. Gone are the days of being blind to what's actually happening in your ingestion run during the whole time that it's happening until it's done. All right. So as exciting as all this new functionality is, I'm not quite done with you guys yet. So let's say you're using this handy new ingestion summary feature that I was just showing you guys. You're checking out what assets you have. So I'm looking at my UI-based looker source. In this run, we had 2 explorers, 32 charts, etc. If I look at this and check out specifically what we're ingesting, I might see this all entities extended sibling or something else. And I might realize, shoot, I didn't actually mean to ingest all this data. Something's wrong with my recipe. I might have to go back and get rid of it or update it. But now through the UI, you can actually also ingest or roll back your ingestions with a simple click of a button. So I called out that one specific before I clicked that button. I called out all entities extended sibling. In another tab, I did a search just for this to show you guys that when I click rollback, it shouldn't be there anymore. So let's do it here. If I click rollback, confirm, takes a few seconds until eventually our source will roll back. So now we get a new status letting you know that it's rolled back. You can go in and click at it. You can still see old logs and the status. But if I go here and refresh, no longer there. All right, rollback worked. Cool, so I'm gonna go back to the presentation. And you might be asking yourself, when is this available? And I'm here to tell you that it might be available, or it is available with our next release, all this new functionality. And that's it for me, everyone. Thanks for your time.
Thanks so much, Chris. We love a good live demo, especially with a rollback and it's successful. What more could you ask for? It's beautiful. All right, let's keep moving things along. We're going to pass things over to, I think Shirshanka and Ryan, you guys are teaming up on some updates to patch functionality.
Yep. So Ryan and I are going to talk to you about patches because what's more exciting than getting data in, it's actually fixing it up, right? And so obviously, this is not about patchwork on a carpet or a rug, but it's actually the next thing, which is the technical definition of what a patch is. And so for people who are familiar, the HTTP spec supports patch as a verb. You can actually patch resources using HTTP, and JSON patch specifically is a spec for an RFC and a spec for using the HTTP patch method to specify deltas on JSON documents. So this could be sets, updates, adds, removes, anything you can dream of. They have figured out a way to express it. It's very verbose, but it is a complete spec and it works. Why is this interesting? It's because DataHub's metadata model, quick refresher, includes entities and aspects. And so for example, the data set is an entity and it's got a couple of aspects associated with it, like ownership, which is actually a nested list of owners. And an owner has attributes like a name, an ownership type, and other details. And other aspects like dataset properties exist, which include other attributes like a description or other properties or external URLs or things like that. So hopefully most people here are familiar with DataHub's metadata model. But if you're not, hopefully this gives you a rough flavor of what an entity is and then how an entity is composed of individual aspects. What do we do with it? Well, let's say you want to add an owner to a data set. Now, there are two ways to do this. One is using a direct GraphQL API. And if there is a specific GraphQL API built for adding an owner, you can use it. But if you want to use the lower level metadata service APIs, the REST APIs, typically what you have to do is first get all the owners of the data set and then add the specific owner that you want. So for example, let's say Pam was an owner, a technical owner for a data set D, and we wanted to add Lynn as a business owner for the same data set D. We would first get the owner's information, the owner's aspect for the data set D. It would come back as a JSON list with Pam as a entry inside it. And we would take Lynn, business owner, add it onto the list, and then write it back. So that's kind of how a lot of the existing interactions with DataHub programmatically work when you want to add an owner or add upstream lineage or add, make any mutations on the metadata model. However, there are problems, right? One, obviously, there could be race conditions between the time that you get the ownership information and then you write it back. Maybe someone else got added into the ownership list and now you've got a problem. You added Lynn and then you maybe removed Bob, who got added in the middle of it. Performance obviously is an issue. Imagine you had to update ownership for 1,000 or 1,000,000 data sets and you're doing this read, modify, write. Not great. And finally, the DataHub metadata service has to be up for this whole time. So you have to have a synchronous communication to the metadata service. That's not good. We like to do async communication as much as possible. So patches are a way to actually solve a lot of this stuff. And we put our heads together and said, how can we make this work in a way that's not too custom and not too specific? So we're going from, if people are familiar with the metadata change proposal event, it basically gives you the ability to specify an entity type, the entity earn, the kind of change you're making, which is right now only support for upsert is present, the aspect name, and then the aspect value, which includes the serialized version of the aspect. So we're moving from there to support for patch. And that means you can start adding JSON patches in the value of the aspect itself and specify the change type as being an aspect, as a patch. So the new patch-based protocol will work over files, it'll work over Kafka, and of course, it'll work over the service API, which means in app code, you can talk to the client SDK and say, hey, I just want to add Lynn as a business owner to this data set. The client SDK will do the work to generate the patch under the covers, send it over files, Kafka, as well as the service API. And the nice thing about it on the server side is that the final read, modify, write is happening within a transaction, so you don't have any more race conditions. All right. And with that, I'll hand it over to Ryan to actually show that it works.
Yep. Okay. So here I've got a current sample data set. So in here, I've got some owners, I've got some tags. And as the part of the requests I'm going to run, we're going to do some adds and removals on those. So if I take this, I go over to my console. So here you can see I'm hitting the standard REST endpoint ingest proposal, and I'm going to add a tag into this data set. So then if I go back in here, I can see that this new tag has been added, and now I can remove it.
I think that was another
Oh,
ad
was
of owners.
that was an ad owner. Ah, gotcha. Yeah. So, okay, this is adding an owner in, right? Sorry about that. So now you can see that this John Doe is added as an owner over here with technical owner as his type. And now I'll do a remove of that owner. And we'll see that it doesn't actually impact that DataHub owner on there. Right, so that is gone. I'm able to add a tag with keeping this legacy tag. I'm able to add an owner keeping this DataHub owner, and then I'm able to remove that owner. Right.
So what Ryan showed obviously was the serialized form of the patches. Obviously, we don't expect everyone to be handwriting those patches. So what's coming to the SDK on the Python as well as the Java side is improvements to make those patches easier to generate. So you can imagine an API like, a patch builder where you give it an entity earn, and then you just get a method called an add owner, and then you give it an emitter and it applies it. And similarly for the Java side. So these things are getting built right now, and they're going to come out very soon. Moving on to the next slide. So that's where the future of patch is going. The server-side release, as Ryan just described, is going to be coming out in this upcoming release. So that's 0844, which is, I think we're going to start cutting it tomorrow. And that'll come with basic client-side bindings for you to generate patches. We'll do richer and more extensible client-side bindings in the next upcoming releases as well. And would love to get feedback on how you think that API should look like. What Ryan demoed includes a little bit of custom code for some of these aspects. And where we want to get to is safe defaults for all aspects, so that as long as you have an aspect, you're able to apply patch to it without having to write any custom code at all. And that's we're targeting end of this quarter to release that. And then finally, we love annotations in our metadata model, and we like to get to model-driven everything. And so where we're targeting that support to show up is you should be able to do the most common customizations that you want on the metadata model in terms of generating these patch APIs and implementations purely using the model. So you should be able to annotate an aspect as supporting patch, supporting certain kinds of capabilities on those patch applications, and we should be able to auto-generate the implementation for you. So I'm really excited because it actually opens up the next set of capabilities in what you can do with the metadata model. We've always gotten a lot of great grades on being metadata model driven, but incremental or Delta supports was always something we weren't great at. And I'm really excited about what patch support will bring to all of the abilities for you to send metadata events from pretty much anywhere in your stack. All right, that's all we had, Maggie. Back to you.
Awesome, thanks so much. All right, we're gonna go over to Gabe to get a look at some upcoming improvements to our search functionality.
All right, thanks, Maggie. Mine is going to be pretty quick. I'm just previewing a new feature that's going to be coming out soon. Not in this release, but the one after. And that's the advanced search capability. So we've been getting a lot of feedback from the community, and that's part of the reason I'm very excited about this one. And we've been getting a lot of feedback from the community that they want, you folks want just more control over how to search. So that with the search box, that will search all different aspects of your entities. And then we have these facets that we provide on the left-hand side, which give you some filtering capabilities. But we keep hearing from folks that they want more. So we're going to add an advanced filtering opportunity where you can go and add different types of filters that are specific to types of metadata. So for example, I could say something like, oh, I want to add a filter for owner, and I want to filter by all of Maggie's entities. And that would give me a result of all of Maggie's filters, or Maggie's entities. With this, you also have the option to do not just one owner filter, but multiple, so that could be ANDed together. So for example, if I added another filter for owner and I said Gabe, this would only give results that were both owned by Maggie and me. So you had the opportunity to express these types of AND queries that we couldn't do before. In addition, you can still do ORs like we did before, where I could say in the same box, I want owner to include either Maggie or Gabe. And here you can see things that are owned by me, things that are owned by Maggie, and also things that we both own together. So in addition to being able to do these ANDs and ORs, we're also introducing types of filters that we did not previously support. So for example, here I can go and filter by column and say I only want to look for entities that have this very specific field name. So if I add that column filter, then what you'll see in the results is only things that are owned by both Maggie and I that have this exact filter match. So I'm very excited about this. I'd love to hear more from the community about different types of filters or different types of queries that you want to be able to express. We really look forward to releasing this to you when it's ready, and then also iterating on it with the community to add different types of filtering so that you can express the queries that you want. All right, well, with that, I'll cut over to Aditya.
Awesome. And a quick reminder there, Gabe started working on this week. So we are very early in the kind of like design and implementation of it. So the more feedback we have up front, the more that we can incorporate rapidly. So feel free, I think probably the UI channel in Slack is probably the best place to jump in. And we love to make sure that we're covering all the different use cases.
Yeah, that'd be great.
All right, Mr. Aditya, are you ready to go?
Yep, sounds good. Can everyone see my screen? Let me also hit the present button. Cool.
You're good to go.
My name is Aditya, and I'm going to talk a little bit about how we're introducing role-based access control into DataHub. Cool. So let's give a quick overview of how existing permissions work. So right now we have DataHub policies, right? So the pros are they're super powerful, very granular, can allow permissions based on specific domains. I can say this group can do these things, or these users can do these things, or maybe I just want owners of an asset to be able to perform certain actions. And there's tons of permissions. Each action on DataHub has its own permission, right? Unfortunately, sometimes it's really complicated for those unfamiliar with DataHub to manage. This is feedback we've repeatedly received from all of you in the community. And it can also be challenging sometimes to diagnose, which policy gives you permission to take a certain action. So we wanted to simplify permissions, and we thought roles makes a lot of sense. Our vision is that we want this to be the default for most DataHub users going forward. So roles is going to have, it's based on our existing policy system, and each role is mapped to a few specific policies under the hood. But for administrators, it should be as simple as I assign someone to the admin role or to the reader role, and they should just be able to do what they need to do. Cool. Alrighty, let's get into the demo. How do I unpresent this? There we go. Cool. Are you guys able to see my DataHub instance?
We are.
Awesome. So I'm right now in this new permissions tab. You can see I have roles now as well as policies. So if I go back to roles, right now the 3 default roles that we're going to ship with for the first iteration is this editor role, this admin role, and the reader role. You can see these descriptions, for what they're able to do here, but reasonably self-explanatory. I can click into this and get see that description again and see which users have this role. I also have this add users button here that I can use to batch assign a bunch of users to that role. Additionally, you can go to the policies page and if I click on this admin's policy, you can see this is the policy that this role is actually using under the hood. Well, there's 2 policies, but yeah. And then on the users and groups page, I can also if I'm an admin and I have the right permissions, it's really easy for me to just change the role that user has. So this person is an editor. That was actually a mistake. I've decided that they should be a reader. Let's reassign them, see what happens. Cool, you see that now they're a reader. All right, now I'm gonna perform a magic trick for you all because we wanna see that this actually works, right? So I'm going to invite a new user. You'll see that they won't be able to manage users and groups because right now that's something you need the admin role to do. And then we'll assign them to be an admin, and then you'll see that they'll be able to have a full list of permissions. Alrighty, let's do this. I'm going to log out. Let's use this invite link. Let's say town hall is our name. I am a data engineer. Cool. So if I go to the settings tab, you can see like I don't have that users and groups or permissions tabs that I could see before, right? When I was logged in as the root user. So let me go back to the root user who is an admin, as you saw previously. Let's go to users and groups. Okay, I see in red that this person doesn't have a role, so I want to assign them a role. I think that they should be an admin. Yes, I would like to assign them that role. Let's wait for that to change. Okay, awesome. Now let's log back in as town hall, and let's see if this worked. Fantastic. I can see users and groups and permissions. It all works. Great. Okay. Let me go back to my slide. Okay, cool. So what's next? So just want to throw this caveat out there. Some parts of the UI and the names have not been fully finalized. If you have some feedback, I'd love to hear it. We also want to be able to, the following items are actually follow-ups and won't be included in the first release. We also want it to make it easy for admins to send invite links to users to invite them into a role. So, you know, you won't have a default role to begin with, at least on this first iteration, but like, you know, I can just send a link to everyone in this group and be like, hey, you guys should all be editors. Just click on this link and you'll be assigned that role. Another feature that we want to build out is role mapping. So, you know, if you use like an identity provider like Azure AD or Okta, you may already have like some notion of roles there. And we want to make it easy for you to map those external roles into these DataHub roles. We also would like to support building out custom roles at some point in addition to these default roles. So, you know, look for that in the future. Another thing that we would like to do is that we want to make it easily configurable at some point, like what owners can do across the platform. Have a page where it's like, here's a checkbox, and like you just say that, you know, owners should be able to do this thing and this thing and this thing. So the way that we see this going forward is that our permissions will be like based on like 3 tiers. So you have this roles, you still have access, or you still have like data policies. And then, you know, we can also have this additional system to manage what owners can do. Cool. I think that is everything I had.
Awesome. Thanks so much. It looks like there were some questions in chat, but I think we have those addressed and resolved. Happy August, everybody. We're winding down the summer and getting ready for the fall or spring, depending on what hemisphere you're in. Thank you all for your time and your attention. We genuinely appreciate all of you. And yeah, we'll stick around for a couple minutes if there's any questions, but otherwise we will see you on the internet, everybody. Thanks, folks.